I love the Golden State Warriors, right? I think, unfortunately, the last championship I think they won was in 2022. But they recently didn't even get into the playoffs, right? They had a chance to they had the one playing game, all right, against Sacramento.
Right.
Lost. I was so mad, Kay, because I love those guys. I love Steph. I love Klay, Draymond, everybody. You know, the teamwork is amazing. But you've seen over the last few years, they've just kind of fallen off, right? They couldn't even beat Sacramento. And the problem is not that you lose, right? It's the way they lost. They didn't even show up, right? And when you have such talented players like Steph and Klay and Draymond and you know, Kuminga, it was sad to see. So I guess my question to you is, the last time they won, since was, like I said, was 2022, do you think that the dynasty is finally over? And if so, what do you think that they need to do to get themselves back to where they were before, if they can get there?
So, well, yeah, I kind of agree. Just from a pure lover of competition in the game, I enjoyed watching the Golden State Warriors. Really did. I remember watching most of the players in college, like college hoops, of watching them and seeing those guys come together and seeing the maturation of the years. So to answer your question, do I think that dynasty is over? Yes. One, I don't think it was a dynasty. Two.
What do you mean you don't think it was a dynasty?
I don't think it was. I don't think it was a dynasty.
Why?
Well, I think there were some elements to a dynasty. I don't think the biggest thing is I don't think they won enough. I don't think they won enough.
Okay.
But do I think it's over? Whatever iteration this is, yeah, I definitely do.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't care who's on the other side of the court. Forget that. Forget who you're playing in terms of competition. You can't beat Father Time. Father Time is undefeated, right? And so these guys have been playing a long time. They're in their 30s, double-digit years. It's a lot. Klay, God bless him, man, has not been the same since he came back. You see flashes of what Klay was, but consistently over the course of the season, he's not the same since the injury that he came back for, the horrific injury twice that he came back from. It's just not the same.
Can I get you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but even with an injury, is it acceptable that with playing 35, 36 minutes, however minutes he played, I think he only played maybe 2 minutes less than Steph, that you scored zero, zilch, egg in a play-in?
No.
I think, but do you think it's more than just his injury?
Well, I think yeah. So the short answer is yes. It is more than his injury. The longer answer goes, and I'll go back to what I said before, which is it's for all the time. Like, these things just change. It evolves, right? Like, there's nothing, there's no loss of respect, right, of aging out. Like, that's just what happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what happens. It happens to the best of them. I don't care who your hero was. They aged out. So I think it is over. Do I think they can get it back? Not with the group that's there. Absolutely not.
Right.
One, I don't think. I think Klay may be up for recontract. Yeah. So he's not going to get the big money. I don't think they're going to do it. If they give him anything that resembles really good money, it's for services rendered, not for going forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's probably, can't swear to it, there's maybe a little bit of buyer's remorse with Draymond. Just from his reaction, getting thrown out and stuff like that. Like, has he really turned the corner? I think, well, there's still a lot of wait and see with him. And Stephen Curry, Steph is listen.
Well, Steph is Steph.
Right, he's Steph, but even he's not how he was, right? He's not who he was.
That is true.
And so eventually, at some point, that has to change. Love it. I enjoyed it. Enjoyed every minute of watching these guys together. They changed the game. Steph by himself. You can go through the history of the game and remember those times.
Best shooter.
Where there were certain players that changed the game, right? Of how we view the game. Brought in legions of fans and other things. Steph's in that category. You put Steph in there. Right. You put Jordan definitely in there. Wilt Chamberlain. And this is rare air. This is above the superstar, the megastar, right? Yeah. Like, if for all that, say, a Shaquille O'Neal was, right? Shaquille O'Neal didn't change the game. He's a megastar. He's amazing. He did not change the game, right? He was a spectacle to see, amazing to watch, right? They literally had to widen the paint for Wilt Chamberlain when he was playing. He was like that big. No one ever seen anything like that. Like, they had to make the lane wider, right? Yeah. Like, he changed the game. Like, that's the significance. So, yeah, man, it's sad to see, but that train is gone. Yeah, they've moved on. Rest in peace to the Warriors.
And to your point, I think a lot of things that went wrong during the season is that they didn't have that cohesiveness, right? Because we were talking about Draymond earlier. You're talking about, like, he would be out so many games because he couldn't get his anger, conditions just under control, and he had to deal with that, and he was suspended for, I forget, probably like 6 weeks or so, if not more. And it's like you have so many people that had such an impact on the game that, it's just not working anymore. I mean, those were the key elements. And for some reason, Golden State also, they never really had their big man. You have Kevon Looney, who he's their big man, but he's not the Shaqs of the world. And it feels like they never really get that big man. And I think that's one of the things that would make a huge difference, because they relied so much on the Splash Brothers, right? But they're not splashing no more. They're just trashing. You know what I'm saying? They're not hitting the shots like that. I mean, like, to your point, like, Steph used to be hitting all of them. He was more consistent. He's not the same Steph. Klay is definitely not the same Klay. And I feel like they kept Klay around for so long just for nostalgic purposes, just because they love him as a person. Listen, I love you, Klay. Klay, you the man. Like, I love you as a person. You're cool. You're mad cool. But it's about business. You're the businessman. You know that's what it is. Like, do you feel that they're just, they're making decisions just because of the heart, or too much of an emotional decision, and not because of business with getting rid of Klay?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, there's no reason to get rid of him, and that will organically happen on its own, because you have to re-sign him, right? So you don't have to re-sign him. So that'll take place on its own. Okay. I will say there may have been a little bit of that when it was time to re-sign Draymond. Right, and I felt a little bit like I mentioned before, like there was a little bit of services rendered, right? Like, he's always been good. He's a part of this. He helped build this. So some of the money, you almost feel like you're giving it to him for something that he did in the past, more so than what he's going to do in the future, right? And then when you put yourself in those situations, you're almost negotiating against yourself, right? I don't know if there was this big market for him. Okay, right? Now he's got Rich Paul for an agent, which means they're probably, I don't care where he is, based off of Rich Paul's history, he would have got more than he was worth anyway. Okay, so, right. I'll put that one caveat out there. But just from a pure basketball sense and what I see, listen, he brings tremendous value, man. Like, he does. Draymond's great. The one thing, the great thing about Draymond, as say compared to say like a Klay, Draymond was never known for putting up gaudy numbers. No, right? Never. Defense. So when you have those nuanced players, right, they age out far more gracefully than someone that was putting up 30, 29, 30 a game. Because
you see that.
Because
you see
it falls off the tip. Like, when they get bad, and sometimes, you see the contrast, right? Like, Klay could come out and average a very incredibly respectable 12, 13 points a game. Right? Which, in the NBA, would still mean he's one of the best players in the world.
But not for Klay.
Not for Klay.
Not for the Klay that we know.
Right. But people would look at him like, yo, we saw that happen with Melo, right? Oh, what's happened to Melo? Well, Melo was used to buckets. I'm a big Melo fan. And at one point, right, he was, he's coming off the bench, doing 13. Yeah. Right. 13. Like, people are like, oh, what's wrong with Melo? Yeah. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong. You're comparing Melo to Melo. Right. Compare him in the position where he's doing to other players in that role, and he's fine. Yeah. So, but I think the challenge though with Klay, he is good. He's serviceable. Comes off the bench, which they did. They moved him to the bench. Okay. Seem to be okay with that. But should they give him that great big contract from a business standpoint? I don't think so, because I don't think there's a market for it. Like, where Where else is he going? Where's
So you wouldn't trade him? Would you trade him?
I don't know if I would. Again, I don't need to trade him.
You don't need to trade him.
Right? If I'm just trying to get him off the roster, I don't need to. Right? Would I trade him? I would have to re-sign him.
Right.
Get him under contract, and then trade him. Right? And the only reason why I would do that is if a team, if there was a team that he wanted to go to, they didn't have the money, they weren't under the cap, so then you can trade dollar for dollar. But we've seen that happen in some cases. If someone likes the player, they'll try to work with him. We saw it in football happen with Justin Fields from the Bears to Pittsburgh. Right. So you'll sometimes see an organization try to work with the player. The last thing I'll just say on this overall, I lean towards retire sooner than later.
Right. Go out on top.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I had the pleasure once of meeting Jim Brown. And again, for those of you who don't know who he was.
Yeah, gotta know Jim.
Right.
Right.
Google him, all-time great, right? So Jim, right? And so I was at an event and he was there in New York City, at a hotel in New York City. And real nice guy, was just waiting for him to go on, and we were off stage and we were just kind of talking and just really kind of went some stuff. So if you know, real quick, so if you know about Jim only played for 9 seasons. Played for 9 seasons and he left. He was about 29, maybe somewhere thereabouts, 29, maybe 30, but he was at the top of his game.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure he was asked 100 million times, but I asked him about that, right? Just in the midst of our conversation. And it's something that he said to me that I will never, ever, ever forget. He said that you, meaning people, should never pity your heroes. He said you should never pity your heroes. Think about that.
Even when you're watching Muhammad Ali get beat in the face by Larry Holmes in his last fight when he's going to get injured.
Muhammad Ali. Seeing Jordan with the Wizards uniform on. Now, Jordan still put on. Jordan was not Jordan. O.J. Simpson. Take away the crime and all that, what you think. Just to what? When he left Buffalo and he was in San Francisco, Duke could barely walk. Right? You see those things. And I think that part of the reason why Jim Brown, to this day, is still considered one of the greatest running backs, check that, football players, period, regardless of position, of all time, has to do with the fact that there is no footage of this man being slow, being run down, being weak. You never had an opportunity to pity him on the field, on the court, or on the ice. Nothing like that. And then when he said that, I was like, oh, wow. And so, bringing it back, Golden State, we are now looking at Klay, and we're pitying Klay.
Yes, because he's hanging around too long.
Pitying Klay. Right. We do this with football. Like, so many people.
You didn't see Barry Sanders lose it. He went out on top.
Same thing with Barry, right? Like, ultimately, though, we see so many of our players, our heroes, right? And it's tough to watch, man. They get slow. So anyway, man. So.
Well, listen, I know we're going to jump off to the next topic. However, just one quick question, because I've heard them talking about this too, rumors going around. Do you think they should trade, rumors, don't know if it's true, blow up the team, trade Steph, blow up the whole team? You trade Steph, you could bring in a whole new unit. You'll probably get 10 great players for Steph. What's your thoughts on that?
So, I would again, if I were to put on my general manager hat, I 100% would do it.
You trade Steph.
Yeah, I would, but I would work with Steph. I would make sure that it's a bit classy so that the fan base doesn't turn on the organization, even short term, because once you start winning, fans are fans. Fans are aligned with the brand, right, across the front, more so than the person name on the back. When you're on their team, they love you. Once you start trading them, and so they play for someone else.
But
so
he's the face, though. He's the face.
I would, but here's the thing, Jay. We start going down that roster. You need to have something to get some value back. Like, you know what I mean? So
if they trade Steph, they can get tons of great players.
I don't know if you get tons at this point.
No,
not at this point in his career, right? Like, again, if I'm a GM that I'm trading for, and I'm gonna trade away. What are you looking for? Right. Draft picks, young players, talented players, a future. It would have to be a situation where I need to win right now, right? you can't look at the future with someone who's 35, gonna be 36,
35, 36,
right?
yeah.
So it's a short term,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna mortgage my future,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So how much? So I'm gonna give you draft picks on. That's where it starts to get kind of right.
Yeah.
But for the right situation, maybe if I'm a player away, win right now.
Yeah.
You know, look at some of these rosters, and if they had a Klay to come in and play for a season or two to get that championship, yeah, that might be worth it.
Yeah,
but
right.
if I'm nowhere near winning a championship, and I just have a lot of young assets,
Right.
nah, man, I'm not making that trade.
You're not making that trade.
Nah, I'm not
and it wouldn't
making
be crazy to trade Klay too, because they ain't gonna get nobody for Klay.
Yeah, I don't.
Nobody.
I don't think you're going to trade Klay, and I don't think you have to. I think his contract's ending. You could re-sign him or just let him walk.